you, it's a great thing to have this book with me so that we can start all from the beginning and take you through step by step on the things you're supposed to know and do. So without wasting any much ado, as you can see here, we've got advertising. So what is the objectives for this lesson? In this unit, we have the reading section, make notes on and summarize the main points of a range of text. It's very important for you to understand the vocabulary, the meaning of words. If not, when you're asked a question, it will be difficult for you to make sense of the question and how to go about answering it. But if you understand the question, then the question is half solved, because at least you know what you're supposed to do and you try to find a way around it. So make notes on and summarize the main. So you should make notes on and summarize. To summarize is the summary of something, your conclusion, from a whole range of things. Maybe something that was described in a paragraph. On 2 or 3 paragraphs, you can use one paragraph to summarize it. Okay, the main points of a range of text, or that's what they mean by range of text. From what a lot of text, you can now bring them down to maybe a couple of sentences or even a sentence. Read a range of text and identify their purpose and target audience. So you have to read a range of text, maybe paragraphs or compositions or readings, and at the end of the day, you have to identify their purpose, that the reason for the text that you've read, and also the target audience. The target audience means the people that the text is meant for. If you are delivering a message or conveying a text, then who are the people that are receiving this message from you? They are your target audience. Okay? So comment on how the writer's language choices and techniques help persuade the reader. But I say you should comment on the writer's language. That means they want you to criticize the person that wrote the text. Okay? Especially with the writer's choices and techniques that help persuade the reader. To persuade means to force someone or to enforce someone to do something that normally he would not want to do. That's persuasion, to persuade the reader. So they want you to comment on the writer's language choices. So the way the writer was choosing his languages and the technique that the writer uses to persuade the reader. Then explore and analyze how texts are designed for effects, including the use of color, font, images, and layouts. So why they brought this about is because here we're talking about advertising, and you also have to understand the meaning of advertising when you have to market your product or your service, maybe on television or on the radio or in the newspaper or magazine. So that is why they had to talk about the text designs, including the use of color, font, images. The color, when you see the font, means the size of the text, and the layout. So you see this when people post their adverts in a newspaper or in a magazine. You see the color, because they want it to be enticing, something that people would want to look at and see, so that they could be able to make a better choice, so you can be able to persuade them. Is the color and the layout of the advert that will make or bring the attention of your target audience to it. The composition means the way you compose your writing. You have to plan different types of writing using evidence to make your meaning clear. Evidence means a proof of what you've done or an experience that you've heard about something. That's what they mean by using evidence to make your meaning clear. So you have to give examples or instances where such a thing or what you're trying to explain took place. That's what they mean. Plan different types of writing using evidence to make your meaning clear. Write a range of different forms of adverts for different audiences using persuasive language and techniques for effect. So they want you to write a range of different forms of adverts, different ways that you can advertise your products or your services for different audiences. That means the target audience will be different. Maybe you're targeting the local people, or you're targeting the people that lives in the city, or you're targeting maybe professionals. That's what they mean by targeted audience or your target audience. Using persuasive languages. Persuasive means something that will make them want to like what you're trying to sell to them, even though ordinarily they would not want to give that or want to treat that with a pinch of salt. And the techniques for effect. This one means the way you have to your layout, your font size, your color, they have to choose to make it catchy for your audience. And they talk about conventions. Understand when formal and informal languages is appropriate and put this to use in your own writing. Formal and informal language. Formal language, when you're writing a letter, for example, you have to address your letter. If you're writing to the head of department of your school or to your head teacher, you can start with dear sir or dear ma. That is what they mean by formal. Informal language means like when you say IDK. IDK is not a formal language. So it's something that you use among your peers, not something that you have to use when you're writing an essay or writing a test at school. So the second bullet point says, understand the use of prepositions, connectives, and the different types of clauses and sentences, and use them in your own writing. Like we've always talked in the past, there is no way anybody could not have included grammar in any form of teaching. So here you see our grammar has, come to play. That's why you have prepositions. When we talk about, we use prepositions to talk about the location of things or people. Also, they talked about connectives and the different types of clauses and sentences, and use them in your own writing. So they want you to include prepositions, connectives, and different types of clauses and sentences during your writing. Then the speaking and listening. Plan and give a presentation in which the structure and language persuade the audience. So they want you to make a presentation, and in this presentation, because you have chosen your words carefully, your words will have to be persuasive, to the extent that your target audience will be able to buy whatever is it that you're selling to them, if it is a service or if it is a product. You will prepare a presentation to persuade a company to produce and sell your product. Speaking and listening, speaking and presenting. So they want you to make a presentation where you have to persuade a company to produce and sell your product. For instance, maybe you're interested in corn and you want the company that maybe is producing a corn in a commercial quantity, means to the quantity or to the level that they could export to other places, so that they could be able to buy your product and sell your product as well. So in this case, you can start to make a case, something that can persuade them. You might use, because nowadays we have genetically modified crops. Most of the crops these days that you see is not the natural crops. They have to mix this and add this and add, and take away that. So you can start by maybe trying to encourage people or be an advocacy for, natural crops, naturally grown crops instead of genetically modified crops. So that's what is expected of you to do at the end of the lesson. So write a letter to the council arguing that the local community center should be kept open. So this one is also a writing composition and conventions. You have to use the composition and the conventions that we've talked about prior, to be able to write this when you're writing this letter. And you must remember too that when you're writing a letter to the council, then your languages must be well chosen. You have to use formal language or text and not informal. And last but not the least, we have the cross-curricular links. We'll talk about citizenship, critical thinking and inquiry, advocacy and representation. Okay, all these I will explain to you when you join me on the Zoom meeting. Okay, here we're going to get into the lesson proper. So what is advertising? You are learning to recognize the purposes of advertising and the effect it has on its target audience. Advertising is the way in which businesses try to persuade people to buy their product or service. It gives people information and tries to make people want to buy that product or service. Advertising might highlight a product such as a new pair of trainers or a service such as a DVD rental company. So from here, from the text, you can see, advertising is a way in which businesses try to persuade. It's all about persuading people to buy your product or your service, to give more information and try to make people to want to buy a product or a service, even when they are not willing to buy them. So the advertising is by you telling them, giving them reasons why they should, participate or why they should buy your product or your service. Okay. Let's jump into the lesson proper. So here, what is advertising? Advertising is the way in which businesses try to persuade people to buy their product or service. It gives people information and tries to make people want to buy that product or service. Advertising might highlight a product such as a new pair of trainers or a service such as a DVD rental company. So you are learning is the first bullet point, to recognize the purposes of advertising and the effect it has on its target audience. So you see, the purposes of advertising is for what? Is to persuade people to buy your product or your service. And how do you do this? You do this by giving people information to try to make them to want to buy that product or the service that you are selling. So advertising might highlight a product. Highlight means to make it clearer for people to understand, to say most of the things that were never known about that product or about that service, or how they could be helpful to your target audience. That means the people that you are selling this product to. They are supposed to do. Activity 1. Advertisers use different media to reach the public. For example, television, the internet, magazines, and newspapers. The choice of media depends on the purpose of the advertising, the target audience, how much money the advertisers have to spend on marketing their product. Different media reach different groups of people. Match the different media below to their likely target audiences by copying out the words and joining them up with lines. An example is done for you. You see here, understanding the vocabulary is very important for you to be able to know what you are supposed to do. So different media, you see, these days we talk about social media. We talk about social media means a place where people could get connected. For example, like the internet, like your Facebook, like Telegram, like on WhatsApp, and all these apps, they are all called social media, where people can socialize. So that's where you look for your target audience. That means the people that the advert is meant for, that you want to reach out to. So the choice of the media depends on the choice of which of the advertising media that you want to use. Is it you want to use television or internet or magazine or newspaper? It depends on the purpose of the advertising. That means the reason for the advertising. It also depends on the target audience and how much money the advertisers have to spend on marketing their product. So as you can see here, we've got an example that has been given to us. So different media reach different groups of people. These different groups of people, that's what they mean by the target audience. So your target audience might be maybe market women or students or professionals and stuff like that. So that's where the target audience comes in place, when you have different groups of people. So you should match the different media below to their likely target audiences. Okay, let's move to the next slide and see. Here you can see we've got an example given to us, which is number 7, the Local Times newspaper. Because it is the local times, they are targeting the local people. So here we've got a UK motorway service station billboard. No, billboard is like when you have a big signpost or digital signpost. You mostly see that when you go to Phnom Penh, when you go to the cities. You see a lot of billboard displays here and there. Companies that are advertising, maybe like Nike, all the big companies, they advertise their product on a billboard. You have leaflets available in all UK tourist information offices. Leaflets is like a piece of paper that is given to people. Maybe I've seen around the city, you see some group of young adults that are displaying leaflets, a piece of paper with information about maybe a new product or a new service that is ongoing in town. Then you have worldwide superstore websites. You have a teen magazine, teenagers, young adults from age 13 to 17, they are the teenagers. Then you have a London Underground subway billboard.